invite you to stand with me if you are able and hear these words from Jesus smack dab in the middle of his Sermon on the Mount teaching. But I say to you, listen, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those for whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great. You will be children of the Most High. For God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as God is merciful. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
For about 3 years, I think over 3 years now, there's been a small group of us that have met monthly to study Jesus' teachings from the Sermon on the Mount. And we've been at it long enough that we circle back around to some of the same passages. And I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems true that we circle back around to this particular passage about love of enemies. Would our group say that that is true?
Amen.
Again and again. Because we keep wondering, what does that look like now? How do we love enemies? It keeps being a timely question. And we keep wondering how to practice this particular teaching of Jesus. Now, Jesus has this really short list here of who he says are your enemies. He says anybody who curses you, abuses you, strikes you, robs you, takes things from you, or steals from you. Think that about covers it? Pretty good. So, do you suppose you do have an enemy? Perhaps. Yes. So, remember that these particular teachings happen while the abuse is still ongoing. This is not a word after the abuse stops. This is a word during the daily humiliation and denigration of a people by a people who were more powerful than them. And because of that, they knew what it was like to feel powerless, to feel hatred, to feel confused about what to do next. And they knew anger. And it was in the midst of this kind of daily denigration that Jesus said these remarkable words. And Jesus was not just painting a pretty picture and saying, they don't really mean it. Yes, they meant it. And Jesus experienced it himself. He was not just talking to those people who have this experience. He was talking to us as the community who experience having enemies. In the midst of this, Jesus says, okay, here's what you do. You have all those enemies? Love them, do good to them, bless them, and pray for them. And then he offers some practices of nonviolent resistance. Now, many of you already know this particular teaching from Walter Wink that has helped us unpack this teaching of what Jesus was saying. And I have some able assistants who are going to come and just remind us of this particular nonviolent resistance work. So if y'all could stand right in front here so that people can see you. The first thing that Jesus says is, someone strikes you on the cheek, you turn to them the other also. Now, you got to first remember that this guy who's striking is the one who has more power, and he's backhand slapping the servant. The backhand slap was intended to humiliate, to shame. It was only done to an inferior. To backhand slap someone was to say, I have power over you and I want to shame you some more. So a master would backhand slap a slave, a parent would backhand slap children, a husband might backhand slap a child, and the Romans would backhand slap the Jews. But if he turned the other cheek, then the only way now that he could come at him was with his right hand still, because the left hand was only used for unclean acts, and you can imagine what that is. And then the right hand, he could hit him, but the only way to hit him was with the front of his the palm of his hand. And if he did that, then he was saying that that person was his equal. Because you would only front hand slap somebody who was at the same rank as you were as a human being. So what he was saying is, go ahead. You can slap me, but if you do that, you must first see me as a full human being, just like you. And then Jesus gave another example. If someone says that you owe them a bunch of money and you offer them your outer garment as collateral. They take it, and then you go ahead and give them your inner garment. And when you do that, you would be standing there with not enough clothes on, and the shame and humiliation would fall to the person who caused you to be standing there naked, and not on the person who was holding the garments. Once again, you have thrown off your opponent by surprising them. And then, it is not in this particular passage, but it's in the other Matthew passage of the version, when Jesus says, if a soldier asks you to go to carry the pack 1 mile, you can carry it 1 mile, but go ahead and carry it 2. The problem is that if someone sees that the soldier has made that person walk further than 1 mile, then the soldier has to pay a penalty. And the soldier is the one who gets in trouble. And then Jesus says, if you see someone who's in need, then help them out. Because you remember that we're all in this mess together. And then, if somebody takes everything that you have, let it go. Because what can stir up in you is enough hatred that it will house you instead. Thank you. And then Jesus offers us what is known as a golden rule, which is in many different religions around the world. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Then Jesus says, look, if you love just those people who love you, so what? Now, that's not so hard, is it? But you can't allow the other to seize your soul. Do not become the hateful person that is doing these things to you. You've let them win if you do. Then, if you will notice, Jesus says, love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Because you don't know. You don't know when that other person is going to change. If they change within your sight. It may take a long time. So don't expect them, just because you're kind, to act with kindness. You do what it is within you to do that comes out of your heart. And then, what Jesus, if you'll notice, Jesus does not offer a word of forgiveness here. I think this is very important for us to remember. In the midst of the abuse, in the midst of the attacks, in the very midst of the fighting, it is not the time for forgiveness. Other actions are required of us. But forgiveness is another action that comes after the reckoning. When the truth is revealed and reckoning happens, it is then that we look at the possibility of what forgiveness looks like. Jesus is offering us a way to love our enemies, a radical pathway of the heart, right in the midst of the body and soul being bombarded. He's not advocating acceptance of the wounding, never. But he's advocating the deepest concerns for our own souls and hearts. Don't become the thing you hate. A vivid example of this kind of love happened in October. The accused killer of 11 worshipers at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh was taken to Allegheny General Hospital. A Jewish nurse named Ari Mahler cared for him in the emergency room. And when this Jewish nurse, was asked why he offered the care, he said on a Facebook post, Love, that's why I did it. Love is an action, as an action is more powerful than words. And love in the face of evil gives others hope. It demonstrates humanity. It reaffirms why we're all here. I could care less what Robert Bowers thinks, but you, the person reading this, love is the only message I wish to instill in you. Love of enemies. During my visit in Japan, I was able to see one of my high school teachers For 50 years, Miss Shiraishi has practiced the ancient art of the tea ceremony. Every single gesture is done with care and attention. It can take a full hour to serve 1 cup of tea to 1 person. I asked her, Shiraishi Sensei, what do you learn from this practice? She said, I learn to serve the other with attention and kindness. It brings consolation to my heart. I asked her if she had books to study to help her learn about the tea ceremony. No books, she said, only the teacher. I follow the ways of the teacher. We have a teacher. Let's continue to follow his ways of love.